we are about to cover PragerU's Detrans documentary. It is a documentary about people who thought they were trans, began the process of transitioning, and then decided it wasn't right for them and detransitioned. So, what that usually looks like is, for example, someone starting hormones, going on hormones for like 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then deciding that's not correct for them and they just stop taking those hormones. Um, However, there can be lingering effects. Like, for example, if you start testosterone, your voice can certainly get deeper. And that doesn't necessarily reverse if you stop taking hormones, right? Similarly, like if you have a mastectomy, like the breast tissue doesn't really grow back if you have one of those. So that's basically what's going on here. Now, I have watched a little bit of this, and I do know that one of the figures featured in it is a detrans woman named Daisy Strongen. And I just have to say, like, I feel awful for Daisy. Like, just genuinely awful because, like, I come from a deeply conservative Christian background, and I completely understand where she's coming from, you know? So, like, I just a few of the posts that were brought to my attention by Aaron Reed here. Um, it doesn't matter that I'm still dysphoric. I'll never ever be a man. Trust me, I've tried. I have found it's better to just make the best of the cards I've been dealt in this life. Uh, which I can tell you, like, I've had that mindset before prior to, like, transitioning. You know, when I was still trying to figure out what my gender identity was. You know? Like, and there is for trans people, especially from trans people from deeply religious conservative backgrounds, this idea that the universe is structured in such a way by God and that by being trans you are an abomination to the Lord. So not only are you, like, you know, just incorrect about being trans, you are actively rejecting your entire being, you know? There is this element of believing that you are, like, the most disgusting of God's sinners. And that is, by the way, like, reinforced by the Christian, you know, belief system around LGBTQ people, right? And Daisy here is echoing a lot of sentiment that I have seen. And I've been in the trans community for a while, echoing a lot of the sentiment I have seen from older trans people. Specifically, like, there are a number of trans people that I've met in various, like, support groups and stuff who are, like, in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And a lot of them are relatively new to transitioning. And that is because they had very similar mindsets. And they've talked openly about this, right? Of basically just saying, oh, well, you know, it was just too hard, you know, a decade or two ago. It was too hard. I had a wife and kids. You know, if I had transitioned back then, like, uh, my entire life would have fallen apart. And so instead, you know, I would just, you know, go out of town on business and find, like, a motel where I could, like, be myself for, like, a couple days. You know, like, they literally fabricated business trips so that they could go and just, like, be in a hotel room by themselves, dressed up as themselves. You know, like, able to exist the way they wanted to. And it's heartbreaking, right? Because it's the story of like having to live this double life where the people who are closest to them don't actually know them at all. And in some cases, they've waited their entire lives for their loved ones to die. Literally to die. Waited for them to die so that they could live openly as themselves without judgment from, their partners or their, parents or, insert family member here. And you know what? That's an idea I had for a very long time. I was like, well, maybe this is just a part of me that I could just do in private, and I never have to tell anybody. Maybe I could just dress up when I'm alone, and like that. Maybe that's enough for me. Maybe I can just do this until I die. Yeah, look this up on stream, and the vast majority of detransitioners are people who stopped for external reasons. Only like 15% or so who who decided they internally don't really feel trans. So even the tiny minority of people who detransition do it from not enough social acceptance, not too much, obviously. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh. Why is my streaming software being so weird? Goodness. But like, yeah, no, it's very weird, right? Like, again, most, like, the vast majority of trans people, something like in the 90%, 95% of trans people are positively affected by transitioning. Of the people who aren't, again, it's something like 85% are detransitioning because of like external factors, like lack of familial acceptance, or financial reasons, or they won't be able to keep their job at work or something like that, and that roughly shakes out to being like 2% of people who transition, right? Like 1 or 2% of people who transition genuinely find it unhelpful and detransition legitimately. And you know what? I just want to say right off the bat, detransitioning, if you are genuinely not trans, is something you should do. If you are not transgender, don't be transitioning. Like, don't go down that path. It's worth investigating whether or not you are, genuinely trans, and whether you believe transitioning would actually materially benefit you, right? And I just want to emphasize that, like, we here at Riverboat Jack are not against people who need to detransition for like legitimate reasons. And you know what? If you need to detransition because you don't have the money to do it, if you need to detransition because you don't feel you are safe, those are also valid reasons to detransition. What I object to are people who detransition and then use their detransition experience as a cudgel to try and strip trans people of their medical rights. That's what I object to.
Motherfucking goddamn it. Keep TRANSPHOBES away from children. Trans rights.
True. Keep transphobes away from children. True. It's worth it for all the reasons that transitioning is worth it. Living in the wrong body sucks ass. True. But like, again, some of the tweets from Daisy just break my heart. So again, It doesn't matter that I'm still dysphoric. I'll never ever be a man. Trust me, I've tried. I've found that it's better to just take the best of the cards I've been dealt in this life. Then a trans person presumably responds, you can always still be a man. You can still be a wonderful parent as a man. You can still pray to God as a man. I hope that one day all the people that try to convince us our lives are worthless or sinful are brought to justice and you can be happy as yourself. Daisy responds, nope, I can't. 100% impossible. Gabriella, man, this is sad. I hope you get better. I hope you get out of this debilitating repression. Be a man if you want. It hurts no one. And again, Daisy heartbreakingly responds here, it would hurt my family greatly. Not that she doesn't want to transition. Not that she doesn't want to be a man. Even though she's already established that she's dysphoric. But that transitioning would hurt her family. You know, and it's just like, again, this is why there are trans people in their 80s who are transitioning. You know? Because they felt like it would hurt their family too much. Tear everyone apart. Too much. So they had to wait until everyone was dead or independent. It's very sad. And then, why would it hurt your family at all? You could do all the things you do for them now, care for them just as much, dedicated your life to them just as strongly, and be a man. Which is a perfectly valid point. And Daisy responds, my husband would lose his wife. My son would lose his mom. It'd be devastating and turn their world upside down. Trust me, I saw what it did to my parents and my brother. And it's just like, your son would gain a dad. Your husband would gain a husband, or if he didn't want a husband, like, presumably he would still want to be friends. He'd gain a best friend. You know, he'd gain a bro. But also, like, what this speaks of here, right, is that Daisy's parents would abandon her. Her brother would abandon her. Her husband would abandon her. And her son would probably be taken by her husband. You know? And, like, she lives in a cage. She lives in this cage that is constructed by this evangelical Christianity that's conservative to its core, where she cannot do what is best for her. You know, she's expected to sacrifice her happiness. And by the way, I'm going to use she throughout all of this because while it's deeply sad, the things that she's saying, and she's indicating a lot about her gender identity, I'm still going to respect what she is identifying as publicly, okay? Yeah, like, it's frustrating. And it's also deeply sad to me that she is being used in this documentary to try and rob trans people of the ability to transition and get the care that they need. Like, she is being used as a pawn to try and rob trans people of the most effective medical intervention to improve their lives. So, with that being said, and I know that that was a long preamble, here we go. We're watching Detrans, the full documentary.
Courage. Here, boy. Come here, Courage. There you are. See, this is Courage, and he's going to pull me through. Okay, Courage. All right. Pull me, Courage. Pull. Pull. You want to be...
I really am sad that I took my voice for granted. Like, I didn't just take it for granted, I hated it. Like, and now, like, I would do anything to have that voice again.
Is she talking about the voice of the 9-year-old girl in that video? I mean, you're not gonna have that voice again. No one sounds like what they did when they were 9. Even adults, like adult cis women, don't sound like they sounded when they were 9. But also, like, I'm going to assume that she's saying this because of testosterone affecting her voice, but like, she sounds like I've heard cis women who sound like her.
What's your trying to teach me?
What's heartbreaking about this? We're less than a minute in. What's heartbreaking about this is, like, she's clearly been told that her voice is fucked up, right? And like, her voice is fine. She sounds like cis women I have heard in my day-to-day life.
What's so funny, Daisy? Come back out with me later, okay? Say hi, Mom.
Our goal here is to offer gender-affirming therapy.
There is a substantial body of research that shows these treatments
Treatment
work.
for gender dysphoria is proven to be life-saving medical care.
Hey, Sock Done
It
Left.
really comes down to how uncomfortable with their body parts.
Deciding to permanently alter the bodies
And do
of
they want
children.
to change those body parts?
What do their doctors know?
There for their detransitioning. Nobody.
Enough children have already been victimized by this barbaric pseudoscience.
Ridiculous.
My childhood was ruined. This needs to stop.
We have a serious problem.
I had an alter ego, and he
Okay, wait. I'm going to make a prediction, right? So they just showed footage of presumably happy kids, right? Like, there were kids doing somersaults and, like, smiling at the camera, intercut with, like, trans people saying that, you know, transitioning is good, or, like, medical experts saying transitioning is good, intercut with, like, detransitioners who are paid by, like, these big conservative think tanks to, like, go and testify about how transitioning is bad and evil. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to wonder if they inadvertently show happy trans people later in this, like post-transition trans people, and then try to play, like, scary music behind them to, like, show that it's, like, bad to be trans. I'm wondering if that's what's gonna happen here. I'm turning it into a game for myself.
was like this boy that I, like, customized in my mind of, like, the ideal boy. Other girls looked so different than I did. They were, you know, expressing themselves very differently.
Oh, okay, so this is Daisy.
I was depressed, hopeless, and I was feeling pretty dejected and scared and alone.
I have not Fenrir.
I didn't like life. Like, I just
Fenrir
wanted to stay
91.
in my room all day.
Wait, did you just say I pre-watched Vi Joe? Are you spoiling for me? Your guess isn't far from the truth? Yeah, okay, awesome.
As you spiral into depression, it really feels like you're in a hole that is so infinitely deep, and the depression just was really debilitating in that I didn't really care about
Self-worth is not a real thing.
Jesus Christ, what? Okay, wait.
about
Self-worth is not a real thing.
Yeah, so as someone who came from a very similar background to Daisy, I can tell you that as a child, I constantly thought about how I was a big piece of shit. Like, how I was terrible and awful. And a lot of that is rooted in evangelical, like, Christian beliefs. Like, the fact that we're all sinners, right? Like, I would think constantly about the fact that I was sinning, and that what I wanted to do and what I, liked was sinful and bad, right? And that effectively having self-worth was a form of pride. And that pride, one of the deadliest sins. One of the worst things you can be, And so I understand, like, being a kid and having that idea. But, like, being an adult now and seeing footage of a kid literally saying that into a camera, that's deeply messed up. But this documentary is trying to portray that belief as being something derivative of, I'm going to go out on a limb because they haven't established this yet, but they're trying to portray that as something established by gender ideology, by transgender belief. But it's actually the opposite. It's being portrayed by evangelical Christian conservative beliefs. I'm actually kind of intrigued because it's kind of like showing how terrible, like, the conservative evangelical line is, right?
Improving myself because I already felt like I was just, like, I shouldn't have been born. Just having really, like, dark thoughts. I always just felt very much like there was just something wrong with me. And I was trying to figure it out. And I used the internet to help me do that.
Wait, so I'm connecting this a little bit more here, okay? So we have posts from Daisy. Do we have... Can I find some more? Like... Oh shit, I'm free scrolling. Gotta be careful. Gotta be careful. Okay, wait. Yeah. I don't want people to think that just because I've detransitioned and chosen a more traditional path, I'm now cured. I still deal with self-loathing. I'm still sick of being me. I'm still depressed. I'm still a miserable, wretched sinner. The mental ailments that led me to transition still plague me today. I still fantasize about being a guy at least a few times a week. I'm often a guy in my dreams, but now I know I can't indulge those fantasies. I've been the best mother and wife I can be. Jesus Christ is my only hope. He is your only hope, too. For the record, the PragerU documentary focuses mainly on the transgender medicalization of minors. I didn't say this in the feature, but I do not think there's a single person, whether they are 8 years old or 80, who should medically transition. Also, everyone should become Catholic. Like, her deep-seated belief here in this doctrine is why she believes she shouldn't exist. Okay? Like, the belief that she has that is derived from her deeply conservative Christian beliefs are that she is so sinful, that her desires are so run counter to God's will, that she just shouldn't exist. Oh no, yeah, Fenry, I feel very bad for her. Like, she's like, looking at her is like looking at like a bizarro world version of myself. Yeah, this is literally self-loathing religious people of all sorts. You can't accept your own desires because that would make you evil and unworthy. Yeah. Exactly.
That's where I felt like I could diagnose myself. My favorite websites were YouTube and Tumblr.
Well, and you know, it makes it interesting, right? Because if you know that this is the background she comes from, of course she turned to, like, Tumblr and YouTube. Because she knew she couldn't talk to her parents about it. She knew she couldn't talk to her family about it because they would just call her, you know, a wretched sinner. They would just be like, "Oh, that's sinful," and that would hurt their feelings. That would make them respect her less. You know, that make them look at her differently. And no wonder you had, yeah. Kids shouldn't have to, like, fear the reaction of their parents finding out that they're gay or trans, okay? Point blank. The fact that so many kids had to turn to Tumblr or YouTube is indicative of the fact that parents and families were not fostering an environment where those kids knew that they would be loved, whether or not they were straight or cis.
It's such a huge amount of content that I consumed at that time. I mean, I watched a lot of trans people. I watched a lot of, you know, gender transformation videos and saw these people really just, like, go from female to male visually. Like, they looked like men. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even know that it was possible for a woman to pass as a man that well. It's really dark when you think about it, because the people who are consuming this are children, like 13, 14, 15 years old. And it's so easy for them to literally be groomed. I just started looking into all of it. I was like, oh, so there's genderqueer, gender fluid.
Wait, my camera? What's wrong with my camera?
There's agender, there's, like, you can be a demi-girl, which is when you're like 90% girl, 10% not girl. Like, there's just an infinite amount of ways that you can interpret and express your own gender identity, and your gender identity is who you are, and nobody gets to take that away from you. So hearing that, I just became very, very interested in having a male persona. The more time I spent online, the more it felt like real life, and the more real it felt, which eventually led to me just fully transitioning. So I came out to my parents as Ollie, and, you know, I went to this, I guess, behavioral mental health clinic for like 6 days. They had a meeting with my parents, and they basically told my parents that if you don't validate Oliver, if you don't validate him, then this is just gonna get worse. The best thing that you can do to help him is to accept him as your son. But I already felt like I wasn't what my mom had expected, and for me, transitioning was the closest I could come to killing myself without actually doing it. With all...
So this is phrased in a way that is difficult to parse. But I am going to attempt to parse it a little bit and relate it to my experience. Because I'm a trans woman, right? And frankly, especially if you're coming from a conservative background, there is an element of truth to the phrase, you know, you have to kill yourself in order to live. Not in a, you know, physical sense, really, but, like, there's an element where I had to spend, like, 2 or 3 years of my life after I realized that I was trans, like, sifting through my memories, and my thoughts and my feelings in order to figure out who I actually was. You know, was I actually this person that I thought I was? Or was I just like a massive conglomeration of coping mechanisms that allowed me to kind of prop up this masculine persona, right? Like, clearly there was a chunk of me that wasn't genuine, right? And the question was, how deep did that go? Does it go all the way to the core of who I am? Do I need to rebuild myself entirely? Do I even like the things that I like? You know? Do I even like video games? Or was I playing video games because that was a way to escape from, you know, my dysphoria? Do I even like reading books? Or was that just another avenue of escape? You know, like, what do I actually like? What do I actually... Who am I? Right? And I think that there is a point at which a lot of trans people go to, or get to, right? Where when it comes to transitioning, and I think it's getting better. I hope it's getting better. I hope fewer trans people are having to get to this point of realizing that they either have to transition or they're going to kill themselves. You know, I hope that is not as common as it used to be. Because for me, that's the point I had to get to, right? I had to get to the point of, oh, this thing that I need to do, I either have to do it or I'm going to die, right? And for a lot of trans people, that's the trigger, right? Because you realize that, and then you have a choice to make. Do you take the risk that everyone you know and love will leave you? Or do you die for their convenience? And, you know, I reached the answer of, no, I'm not going to die for other people's convenience. But frankly, a lot of other trans people don't reach that point. And after you realize that you are willing to, you know, you are taking a stand for yourself in that way. You are saying, I reject dying so that I can do this. Then the question becomes, okay, but so you've planted your flag here. You've declared that this is who you really are, at the core of yourself. But who are you? What are all these other parts? Are you really the person you thought you were? And so it triggers like this avalanche of introspection. Or at least it did for me. And to some degree it felt like, you know, killing myself internally. Because I was having to look at all of the aspects of who I had previously unquestioningly really thought of myself as, in order to figure out what I actually liked, what I actually believed in, you know, who I actually was. And that's the thing, it's for their convenience. That's what they're arguing for. That people stay miserable or even die so they don't have to acknowledge the existence of trans people because it upsets their worldviews. It's beyond selfish of them. Yeah, exactly. That is what the anti-trans position is. The anti-trans position and the conservative position in general, in protection of the status quo, is the violent defense of being able to be lazy, frankly. So, yeah, well, what she said here was hard to listen to. That's how I interpret what she said here. The closest she could come to killing herself without actually doing it. It is this internal questioning of who you are, right?
All of these mental struggles that I was having, not knowing how to make sense of it on my own, and consuming so much of the trans narrative
just loving life.
Hearing people say this made me so much happier.
Also, this is weird, right? Like, they're showing so many examples of, like, happy, healthy trans people. Like, what? We're like 5 minutes in, and they're like, what trans narrative? The trans narrative in, you know, this conservative worldview is that in order to be happy, in order to, you know, not kill yourself, you have to transition. That's what they're saying. And the argument that this documentary, as far as I can tell so far, is putting forward is that you can live a perfectly happy and healthy life without transitioning, even if you feel like you should transition. That seems to be the position, right, that they're going with. But, like, the person they're showing who is detrans is framed as so sad and so upset about not being able to transition. Frankly, that's what it seems like, especially combined with, like, their Twitter presence, their online presence. And then that's juxtaposed with all of these trans people who have been successfully able to transition, like, and they're all happy and like living their life and feeling joy.
This made me so much happier. This alleviated my pain. I wanted to alleviate my pain. I also didn't want to be who I was. So with transitioning, I could do both of those things. I could alleviate my pain and I can become someone else. I wanted to escape my own identity as Daisy.
My name is Ali.
So two things. One, transitioning for trans people is to alleviate pain for the vast majority of trans people. Some trans people transition, obviously, just because they want to and not to alleviate pain. But, like, for a lot of trans people, it's to alleviate the pain. And the pain of dysphoria. And in the process, you become a different person, but that person you become is the one who chose to live. You know, like, you become the person who values their life and their happiness enough to actually take a stand for it. You know, like, and that does change you, but taking a stand for anything changes you.
Chadra, and this is my voice. One day before testosterone.
But yeah, that's the other thing. Exactly, Erica. While I did do a lot of introspection, you know, here, this should resonate. This should resonate with a lot of you guys. Okay? This should resonate, all right? I'm talking to you in the language of my audience. All right? Even when you transition, despite everything, it's still you. Whatever you is still in there. Okay?
That was really the beginning. I wasn't just playing around anymore. I wasn't just playing dress up anymore. Like, I was actually going to become a trans man and live my life that way.
Culturally, we are Mexican, and men have to be very masculine in our culture. And I wasn't the most masculine growing up, and I think that had a part on everything that eventually led me to do what I did. It was around middle school, I was surfing YouTube one day, and a video popped up, male to female, and that eventually planted the seeds of doubt. It allowed me to be
Trigger warning for this part? Okay. Oh, trigger warning for sexual assault for this part. Okay. Valid trigger warning. Come back in 5 to 10 minutes.
caught by the ideology that eventually led me to hurt myself. Eventually, I just wanted an answer to be given to me on who I was, and I went to see a therapist, and I had only asked, I think I might be trans, I don't know, I want to know. The therapist immediately on my first appointment with her said, yes, I am a transgender woman. She had my letter to transition the same appointment. After that, I just took everything slowly. But eventually my father found out what I was doing. And due to our culture, he was not happy. And he took me to Mexico and had me have sexual relationship against my will with a prostitute.
Oh, Jesus.
I was a 19-year-old kid, and my father told the prostitute, take good care of him, it's his first time. He was trying.
But like, and that's horrible. But that has nothing to do with gender ideology, or at least gender ideology as PragerU is formulating it. PragerU's ideological stance is actually more in line with the ideological stance of that man's father. Like, PragerU is exploiting that sexual assault to try and convey its position that transitioning is bad. But this is what PragerU's stance is. PragerU's stance is that you should just ignore it. Ignore your gender feelings. If you're a man, go out and have sex with women. That is your duty as a man. Like, that's PragerU believes that too, right? Like, PragerU's position is the conservative position, which is that men are base animals who, without the law of society, would go around raping women. And therefore, men and their proper role is to be sexually aggressive towards women, right? This is effectively describing a corrective rape. Describing a father forcing his son to have sex against his will in order to make him a real man. This is not a left-leaning ideological basis. This is a conservative one. I'm actually shocked. How do we know these stories are true? I'm going to give this documentary the benefit of the doubt. I think that they found people who are 100% honest in this video. It's just that the framing of this is very clearly, conservative in nature, right? Yeah, also, it's interesting to me that the narrative here is because of our culture, right? But that culture is like, the culture you're talking about is like religious conservatism. The culture of religious conservatives is like this. They're trying to blame trans people for existing. They're trying to blame the corrective rape that happened here on trans people. But it's very clearly like the same ideological background as PragerU. I know I've said that a couple times now. I'm just actually shocked that they kept that in. Vosh said they accidentally made a pro-trans documentary. Honestly, yeah. This is horrific.
Trying to prove that I was a man. That broke me, obviously. After that, I go back to the therapist and told her I wanted to transition. And she recommended I start my social and medical intervention as soon as I can. 11 months after I had started hormones, I was transferred to another medical professional.
I do wonder in his story how he was able to go see a therapist without, like, his parents knowing. That seems like a difficult thing to pull off.
Who, after speaking with him for one time only, he approved me for surgery. And a few weeks after that session, I got 2 letters from my insurance approving me for surgery. But I was a little surprised that I received my letter for bottom surgery, which was removal of my genitals without even asking.
What? So he was 19 at the time. So he got... I'm very confused here. I need to listen to that part again. That was very strange.
A few weeks after that, he approved a professional who, after speaking with him for one time only, he approved me for surgery.
Uh-huh.
And a few weeks after that session, I got 2 letters from my insurance approving me for surgery.
Uh-huh.
But I was a little surprised that I received my letter for bottom surgery, which was removal of my genitals without even asking.
Okay, so he's saying he got approved for top and bottom surgery, but only asked for top surgery. Yeah, it could be editing. So yeah, I guess I'm confused. It wouldn't be necessarily out of the question to go to like a therapist and then a secondary healthcare provider. And usually when you go from like your main healthcare provider to like that secondary one, you're just going for an additional consultation. They usually have your entire medical file to like help them make their an informed like medical decision, right? And then if they sign off, then they send all of that information to your insurance company, and your insurance company makes the decision to approve it or not, right? And usually what the insurance company is going to do is they're going to write you a letter for top surgery and bottom surgery. This doesn't mean that you have to get top surgery and bottom surgery, but they are going to like approve it. You know, if you want to have that done, they're going to tell you, okay, yeah, you can get that done. Because again, that's not uncommon for trans women. Yeah, it just means you have the option.
My name is Ali Chadra. This is my voice pre-T. My name is Ali Chadra, and this is my voice 1 month on T.
2 days ago was my official 3 months on testosterone. This is my voice 4 months on T. It's probably not really a good thing that I was able to get my hormones so easily. I mean, anyone can go in there. Not only did they send me home with the hormones, but
That's true. And anyone can go to a doctor. That is true. Anyone can go to the doctor when they have symptoms that they might need to go to a doctor for.
I actually did my very first shot right there in the doctor's office, and I was just euphoric, and it was real, and I was actually going to start seeing changes, and I was going to start passing, which basically meant that everyone around me was going to see me as a boy, an actual boy.
Hey, Raiders.
This feels good. This makes me happy. I'm actually feeling the feelings that, you know, all those, like, trans people online were saying that they felt.
I just want to say that I'm literally so happy with my test. It's so...
I just, again, have to point out, right, that, like, from PragerU's perspective right now, they are, again, PragerU doesn't believe that trans men are men. PragerU believes that trans men are women. So from PragerU's perspective here, they're showing they're showing a topless woman in this video. That from their perspective, right? And like, that's insane to me. Like, if you actually believe that this person is a man, or if you actually believe that this person is a woman, and you are making the choice to show them topless, that's, I don't know, it kind of demonstrates to me that PragerU and conservatives make a distinction here between trans men and women. It's very strange. Their rhetoric doesn't match up their actions with their actions. How old were they in this video? I don't know who this person is. Noah Fintz? I don't know who this is.
So much better than I thought it would be.
Seemingly out of nowhere, we've suddenly seen a huge spike in media depictions and social media depictions of transgenderism. It's even reached the mainstream advertising world. And I think this is all...
Goddamn.
It's even reached the mainstream advertising world.
Ah, yes, we all know. Mainstream advertising world is Dylan Mulvaney being paid for one Instagram post. Actually, did they even pay Dylan Mulvaney for this post? Or did they just send a Bud Light with her name on it to her? Yeah, it's literally an unpaid Instagram post. She got a single Bud Light with her face on it. Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, this is mainstream to these people. An Instagram influencer with her face on a Bud Light can. For free.
And I think this is all coming to a head and what this really means for our society. In cases like the case of Layla Jane.
By the way, again, LBP partner, like, yeah, trans people are so mainstream now. Look at all of these examples with this person you've never heard of before.
And what this really means for our
and this person
society.
You've never heard of before. And this person you've never heard of before, holding up nondescript bottles of things. This is mainstream advertising. Uh-huh. You'll find this on network television advertisements.
This is like the case of Layla Jane, a young girl whose breasts were removed at age 13 by doctors who fed her a lie.
Take this next case. Layla Jane was born a girl.
Layla Jane experienced a host of medical issues in her youth. Her mother, who is bipolar, expressed to these physicians and therapists that her daughter might be bipolar, but she actually never received any diagnosis or treatment for that. The family went to one physician who, after less than a 2-hour appointment, green-lighted the hormone therapy, and in a similarly or even shorter period of time, a plastic surgeon signed off after one visit on removing her breasts. Like most young women.
Look, again, if that is true, it would seem like there's some medical malpractice going on, like they have a claim to that. And if indeed there is medical malpractice here, then I feel very, very sorry for Lila Jane. But this is not, like, medical malpractice happens across every medical discipline. The existence of medical malpractice does not justify throwing out the entire surgical or medical intervention, especially when it's proven to be as effective as gender-affirming care. You know, like even if you granted all of the arguments that Trump lawyer just made, right? It still wouldn't make any sense. Hey, Lucy Hayes. Isn't it greenlit? I believe it is greenlit, yeah. Yeah, this isn't a big gotcha. This is just like, oh, well, if that was medical malpractice, that's bad. And, you know, obviously that shouldn't happen. But also, you don't stop doing open heart surgeries because sometimes medical malpractice happens. OMG, hi! You should come on my stream sometime. I'm just really bad at reaching out and talking to people. But you're really cool, and I'd love to talk with you sometime.
Who go down this path of identifying transgenderism as the solution to their problems, reinforced by irresponsible medical care providers.
Yeah, transgenderism, the solution to all of my problems. I mean, it was the solution to some of my problems, and then being trans created a lot of other problems in my life, like lack of acceptance from my family and crippling anxiety. But you know, I've been bullying Lucy to try and talk to you. We must talk like real gigglers, indeed. We must ban heart surgery. How can heart surgery be banned when I've already given my heart to all of my chatters?
It's likely that if physicians had properly diagnosed all of the issues present in Layla Jane as a child, she would never have gone down this path.
When parents of trans-identified kids are referred to specialized gender clinics, they're often told that they're going to...
Man, it's really weird how so many of these people in these videos come from the Manhattan Institute. I wonder if the Manhattan Institute is like, I don't know, like some kind of reputable medical institution? Manhattan Institute. Research Institute in New York. Wow, they must have... They must be like real big boys. Okay, they must be like real cool dudes. Manhattan Institute for Policy Research. That doesn't sound like medicine. It's a conservative think tank focused on domestic policy and urban affairs. Wow. The Institute has produced books, articles, interviews, speeches, op-eds, policy research, and quarterly publication City Journal. Wow. Let's see. Oh, look. Talking about wealth and poverty, supply side economics, why privatization is good. It seems like they might have a bit of an ideological bias, if I had to guess. Let's see. Just out of curiosity here. Policy and initiatives. Oh, look! They did broken windows policing. Cool. What a amazing legacy to have. Yeah. Most recently, McDonald's argued that crime rates, or in some instances murder rates, have spiked in many urban areas as a result of the Ferguson effect, the tendency in the aftermath of 2014's riots in Ferguson, Missouri, for police officers to engage in less proactive policing for fear of generating backlash from local populations or the media. Ah, yes. I too believe that police aren't doing their jobs because media would be upset at them. Mm-hmm. Goodness. Institute senior fellow Beth Akers wrote Game of Loans. Yes, this is a deeply serious institute. So serious that you're writing a Game of Thrones knockoff on student debt. Cool, dude. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Yeah, they seem real neat.
To get comprehensive, multidisciplinary mental health assessments. We know that that's not true. In practice, these kids were put on a fast track to medical transition.
Layla is now 18 and is fighting back. So this does not happen to anyone else.
My name is Prisha Mosley. I was a 15-year-old girl.
Again, I need to really emphasize this in the middle here. Like 95% of people who transition, it is a positive intervention, meaning that it improves their lives, right? For the percentage of people who detransition, we'll say it's 5% here, something around 85% of them detransition because of lack of social acceptance. They'll lose their job if they continue. Economic reasons, like they can't afford transition, etc. Right? 85% of people who detransition do so because of those reasons. The remaining 5%, genuine, or 15% genuinely need to detransition, and more power to them. But the idea here that, like, gender-affirming ideology or gender-affirming care wants people to transition is very bizarre to me, right? Like, medical providers don't want people to transition. They want people to be able to feel better. That's the entire premise of, like, medicine. Like, open heart surgeons aren't, like, sitting there being like, oh man, I really hope this guy needs a triple bypass. Like, what? No. Right? Like, they just want people to feel better. That's the goal of providing medical care. But the conservative viewpoint on this is that nefarious doctors are trying to trans all of the kids, which is just weird and not true. And most of the care around children is geared towards buying more time for more assessment of kids and teenagers to ensure that any medical intervention is actually necessary. Which is very strange, right? If, for example, if doctors were deeply invested in transing all of the kids, right? Why bother with puberty blockers? Why bother with puberty blockers at all? Just start them on HRT right away. Again, the conservative narrative is just built on fear-mongering and lies. And maybe, this is me granting a lot, maybe occasional instances of medical malpractice. That's me granting an awful lot to the conservative position.
When the trans community found me, already diagnosed with multiple mental illnesses, including anorexia, a body dysmorphic disorder, and borderline personality disorder, a trauma disorder, I was easy to manipulate and convince that I had been born in the wrong body. I was told that this was the reason for all of my mental and emotional distress.
The gender specialist I was taken to see told my parents that I needed to be put on puberty blocking drugs right away. They asked my parents a simple question: would you rather have a dead daughter or a living transgender son? This is the moment that we all became victims of so-called gender-affirming care.
I'm actually baffled by the framing decisions in this documentary. Like, okay, right? So I'm gonna walk you through this, right? So you have Chloe Cole here. Noted paid activist for conservative think tanks and also detransitioner, right? Giving her testimony. And she talks about this, right?
Would you rather have a dead daughter or a living transgender son? This is the moment.
And this is juxtaposed with this guy who was the victim of sexual assault by his dad, whose answer to that question was, I would rather have a dead son. Right? Like his dad's answer was, I would rather instigate my son's rape than have him transition. Like, it's actually insane to me that this documentary would juxtapose these two people, these two stories. Like, it's almost like PragerU's a bunch of hack frauds. Yeah.
Moment that we all became victims of so-called gender-affirming care.
But this guy wasn't a victim of gender-affirming care. His story was literally that when his dad found out he might be trans, his dad took him to be raped. What? That's the opposite of being a victim of gender-affirming care. That's actually the opposite of that.
Is this the document we're talking about? You needed this letter signed by a therapist to open up the door for you to get these medical treatment. Is this the document that we're talking about earlier?
Yes, it is.
And it took you how long to get this?
30 minutes.
The ideology that has become dominant.
Okay, again, also if you're an adult, you can get like informed consent within 30 minutes. If you're a kid, I've again never heard of a child getting a informed consent in 30 minutes for gender transition. That sounds bullshit. Unless you're an adult going to an informed consent clinic.
At these clinics is that trans kids know who they are, and therefore to question them, to ask basic therapeutic questions like, could your gender dysphoria or gender identity have been triggered by some other event in your life? Basic questions of screening are completely taboo in these circles.
That's actually not true. Like, I went to an informed consent clinic when I started my medical transition. They asked me screening questions during that visit. And by the way, I had to come back for a follow-up where they asked me even more questions because I had to get my blood work done on the first visit I did. So I was actually asked and subjected to two rounds of screening before I received my prescription. So is this guy lying? Yeah, I kind of think so. He's from a conservative research tank. He has every reason to lie.
But the truth is that parents don't have much of a choice in the matter. And doctors are telling parents in front of their distressed children, if you don't consent to the use of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, your child is going to die by suicide.
I mean, yeah, it like, I don't know, makes their child 40 times more likely to attempt suicide if they're trans. But again, puberty blockers do not have long-term effects on the body. We know that. because they've been used in children, predominantly cisgender children, since the 70s. So again, like, this is just not accurate. Now, if you want to include HRT, maybe there's like wiggle room there. But again, I like how they played audio of this hack fraud talking about how children do not know who they are over images of a person who knew who they were as a child. Yeah.
I believe that most doctors who practice gender-affirming medicine,
Gender dysphoria is
they genuinely, sincerely believe that they're doing good, but they're not.
Finland, Sweden,
Citation needed.
France, Norway, and the UK are reversing course and asking questions.
Have all not
Citation needed.
found enough medical evidence, psychological evidence, to support transgender therapy.
In the UK,
Citation needed.
their only national gender clinic for children shut down last year by court order. What do their doctors know that our doctors?
You know, really interesting here. Really interesting. Fun fact here.
Support transgender therapy.
In the UK, their only national gender clinic for children shut down last year by court order. What do their doctors know that our doctors don't?
Their doctors know, actually, that they needed more than one clinic for transgender kids, actually. That's what their doctors know, and that's why the Tavistock clinic was closed down. Because they weren't providing enough gender-affirming care, and they needed to build multiple locations. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And unlike PragerU, I actually provide citations. Why the Tavistock Gender Clinic is actually closing, and what it means for young trans people. Wow! The Gender Identity Development Service in the Tavistock was a groundbreaking institution when it was established as NHS England's sole provider of care for trans and gender questioning young people in 1989. But as the years wore on, cracks began to develop on the surface, exposing faults in the way the NHS treats trans youth healthcare. Waiting lists spiraled, and young people now forced to wait years before they can see a specialist. Eventually, it was decided that having a single provider of trans youth care across the country wasn't safe or sustainable. Last July, NHS England announced the Tavistock Clinic would be shutting down by spring 2023, to be replaced by at least 2 regional service centers. The move came after GIDS was criticized in an independent review led by Dr. Hilary Cass, who called for care to become more integrated and more easily accessible. However, as the closure date looms, there are reportedly no locations, staff, or services yet in place. This has left thousands of trans youth and their families in limbo as the future of gender-affirming care in healthcare through NHS England. Incomplete sentence. That's why it's confusing me. The decision to close GIDS was designed to improve access to gender-affirming care for young people. However, the press have continued to frame the decision as a win in their war on trans lives. By the way, I believe that Dr. Hilary Cass actually had to write a statement publicly to say that her independent review found, no abuse of children happening at Tavistock, and instead, again, reiterated the need for more gender-affirming care for kids in the UK. So, again, literally the reason Tavistock was closed down was because they found the need for more care directed towards kids. And the reason more clinics haven't opened is because the UK is a hellhole. There you go! Ba-ba-ba-ba-da-bum. That was my little autism dance. I hope you enjoyed it.
Part of the problem is that the current cohort of teenagers that are being transitioned under the affirmative protocol, which lacks guardrails, which takes kids at their word when they say I'm trans.
So here's the thing, right? The affirmative protocol that he's talking about here is just like the approach of saying, oh, that's interesting. Can you tell me more about that? When someone claims to be like trans, if someone comes in, right, to like get therapy and they're like, Doc, I'm depressed. And then the doctor goes, no, you're not. Have you tried yoga and sunshine? Well, how effective do you think that's going to be? How effective do you think that psychological care is going to be? Just out of curiosity, I want you to actually respond to this question, chat. Do you think it would actually be effective for therapists or psychological professionals to react that way when someone claims psychological symptoms? Hmm. 100% effective. I base this on having a wrench through my head. Yeah, indeed. It's not. It's not effective to invalidate people's perceptions of themselves. Generally speaking. Sometimes pushback is required. But generally speaking, when someone comes in and says, Doc, I have a problem, you don't go, no, you don't. You know, you can even take this into the realm of, like, medicine. When someone walks in and is like, Doc, my leg is hurting, the doctor doesn't go, no, you're not. You liar. You fucking rat-fink bastard of a liar. No, it's not. That's not effective medicine. No, you listen to your patient and you evaluate their symptoms. You evaluate their condition. You evaluate their consistency in their symptoms. That's what therapy does. That's why you come back to therapy every week. It's so your therapist, your psychologist, your whatever, is able to track your persistence of symptoms, whether they're improving or getting worse, because that can then be more information, more data points to come to a conclusion about what might be, your damage, what might be troubling you, and by extension, what could help you. Generally speaking, again, this is why kids will go to therapy over a long period of time to establish, their need for gender affirming care in the form of like HRT or puberty blockers. You can obviously find cases where like kids, move faster through that through that system. But generally speaking, it's going to be because, the medical professionals believe that they have enough evidence to move them along to the next step of the process. But every step through that process is evaluated. And sometimes by multiple medical professionals. So again, yeah. The idea that there's no pushback in gender-affirming care is just not true.
Trans, which doesn't do proper mental health assessments. In fact, double mastectomies on teenage girls went up 13-fold between 2013 and 2020. Between 2016 and 2019 alone, these procedures went up by 500%. A study published in 2000.
By the way, I do really like that, like, they're like between 2016 and 2019, it went up by 500% from 10 per 100,000 to 50 per 100,000. Wow. A whole 50 out of 100,000? That's crazy. In Poland, you need a battery of psychological tests, including tests for psychopathy, schizophrenia, etc., and also a letter from a psychiatrist to get HRT. Yeah, like, if you're an adult in America, and depending on where you live, you can get access to HRT much easier through informed consent clinics. But if you're a kid, generally speaking, there are a lot more medical hoops to go through, And yes, Lucy went through all that. Hell yeah, Lucy. Up top. So, yeah, again, like, we live in a country, let's just spitball, back of the napkin math, 300 million times, or we'll do this. Do 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 do. Times 0.00. Oh wait. Do. I'm bad at math. Okay, yeah, so 3,000 trans men. Just out of, wait, I need to see how. Yeah. Okay. A total of 209 patients underwent gender-affirming mastectomy between January 1st, 2013 and July 31st, 2020. So, like, at most, let's just follow their own math here, okay? 209 times 13. So at most, it went from 209 to 2,717 out of 300 million people. This isn't a problem. This is, like, I'm sorry. How many people got struck by lightning? Let's see. Okay, so only about 10% of people who are struck by lightning are killed. In 2022, 19 people died to lightning, so let's just go with 190 lightning strikes in 2022. So, again, this is like, I don't know, slightly more likely than being struck by lightning, I guess. Like, that's... but lightning is an act of God? You know what? So is gender dysphoria, okay? Trans people don't ask for it. We just get it.
These procedures went up by 500%. A study published in 2022 by researchers who are advocates of gender-affirming surgeries showed...
Wait, they also mentioned the regret rate in the study, 1% cited here. Oh, wait, what? Wait. In this study, Charlotte? Or Robert? Wait, I need to look that up. Okay, just Okay. Oh. 0.95%. Less than 1% of the people in this study that they are citing right here, less than 1% had documented post-operative regret. But again, neither underwent reversal surgery at follow-up of 3 and 7 years post-operatively. So again, even the 1%, the less than 1% who regretted it in the study they're citing right now with scary music in the background, less than 1% like showed regret. And they didn't even like get a reversal done. They had the option. They could have gotten a reversal. It's crazy, dude.
Showed that the youngest patient to have received a radical bilateral mastectomy in the United States is 12 years old. These kids are going to grow up and they're going to start to feel the full effects of their medical decisions. They're going to start to feel the side effects. If you really want to know whether amputating the breasts of a 12 or 13-year-old girl is ultimately in her best long-term interests, ask her when she's 30 or 40 and unable to breastfeed her own child.
You know, really odd here, but it turns out that there are actually a lot of studies about like breast reduction for teens in particular, because it turns out breast reductions for cis women are actually far more common than top surgery for trans men. And it turns out, guys, you'll never believe it. You'll never believe it here. Cis women as young as 12, cis girls as young as 12 can get breast reductions. That's crazy, dog. Turns out that's something that cis girls at 12 can do. Oh my god. I mean, if you, like, again, if this is not what you want happening, like, you could have laws against, like, surgical interventions of that nature. Like, you could pass laws against that? But also, like, the reason there aren't laws against that is because there are medical reasons by which you would justify top surgery on a 12-year-old. Because again, some 12-year-olds have precocious puberty. They go through puberty early. They grow really big breasts that are too big for their bodies. They need, like, breast reduction. Sometimes kids have breast cancer. They need to have a top surgery done. You know, this is something that happens. And some cis women remove breasts to preempt breast cancer if they feel they're at risk. Yeah. Why did the 12-year-old have a mastectomy? Is there another reason besides gender dysphoria? Yeah. One, large breast sizes compared to small frame can lead to, like, massive back problems and back pain. I know this, by the way, because there was a girl who I went to school with who had to have a top surgery done because of that very reason. It happens. And, by the way, it's way more common than trans men getting surgeries that young, okay? Breast tissue stop growing at 15? Okay, look, I don't like pulling this card, but my partner literally designs bras for a living, and that's just not true. Like, plenty of people's breasts continue to grow post 15. The study they cite debunks them, and it's glorious. Yeah, honestly, this is pretty glorious. Anyway, continuing on. it feels really sad. Like, again, the framing of this documentary is so weird because it contrasts moments of, like, genuine joy with, like, moments of, like, really profound sadness, you know?
I would go out into the world, and everyone's calling me Ollie. Everyone sees me as a guy. But then, at the end of the day, when I'm home, in my room, looking in the mirror, I'm like, what did I do? Like, I start getting these, like, really scary thoughts of, like, you're incomplete. You're not a guy. You never will be.
Where do you think those thoughts come from? Just, I'm asking because there are two possibilities here, right? For this poor person, right? Either those thoughts are genuinely coming from you, from her, you know, and she genuinely needs to detransition, or they're coming from deep-seated conservative evangelical beliefs that are antithetical to trans people existing, right? Like, when you've grown up your entire life learning that, like, you know, gay people are abominations, or, like, and should never be accepted in society, or, like, trans people are evil because of insert couple Bible verses about wearing clothing of, like, the opposite gender or something. You know, like, where do you think these thoughts come from? Because I know for me, right, and I feel like my story is very similar. I know that for me, those thoughts came from my evangelical Christian upbringing, you know? So, for me, the answer was that. I can't say where those thoughts come from for this lady, but all I know is that she seems to be suffering greatly. And from what she has said on social media, the reason for that suffering is primarily that she would disappoint and hurt her family and the people around her, not because it wouldn't make her happy.
But even though you're legally, you know, your driver's license says you're a guy, you know you're not. You finally have expressed your true inner self or whatever, the thing that you wanted to do so badly ever since you were like 13, 14 years old. You did this thing to alleviate this gender dysphoria.
True,
you know,
Lucy.
that wasn't there before, but you made it into a problem, and now your body image issues are worse. That's not supposed to happen.
Ooh. Also, this is interesting. I haven't heard this one. But that's actually true. Because sometimes when trans people transition, especially early on, right? And, you know, I'm like 5 or 6 years in at this point. Like, I feel like I can say it happens even when you're like 5 or 6 years in, for example. But, like, you inhabit a body that is different, right? And yet you are still held, you are held up to, like, social standards, you know, the beauty standards of society. And those beauty standards, when you before you transitioned, right, your body more neatly fit into those standards regardless of what it looked like, right? But now you are being held up to a different set of standards, and it can feel like your body is wrong because the standards are nearly impossible for you to meet, or because the clothing doesn't fit you right, you know? And it can, that the conditions of our society can be built in such a way that you start feeling that your body is wrong rather than the beauty standards that have been artificially constructed by society to sell you clothing are wrong. So in some ways, sometimes when trans people transition, there can be days where like the dysphoria gets worse because you are more keenly aware of all of the ways in which your body isn't living up to social standards and acceptance. It's got to be especially rough for trans femmes, with society already has some fuck beauty standards for women. Yeah, Fenry, as a trans woman, like, I can confirm, right? Like, it's rough being like a thicker framed trans woman. And I don't think I'm an unattractive person. And in fact, you know, I had a fairly successful like sex work career that indicates otherwise, you know. Made it pretty high up in OnlyFans rankings. Just not to toot my own horn. But my body was different and is different from what is held up as like conventional beauty standards. And it took me a very long time to realize that most women's bodies don't live up to those standards either. And so it can be difficult, I guess is what I'm saying. You become more keenly aware of the way in which you are not living up to these standards. And that can hurt. And it can hurt a lot. Trans girl Jade, I literally, to level with you guys, literally just today, I like woke up and felt bad about my body to the extent where I was like prepping myself for some like eating disorder stuff. Not to go into too much detail. Like planning on like, okay, here's how I'm going to not eat for several days. And you know, I'm lucky enough to have a partner who is able to see that and like intervene in a very lovely and caring way and like get me to eat some food. And like I feel much better now, but like there are still definitely times, and again, I'm 5 or 6 years in, when you're a newly transitioning trans person, it can be even harder, you know? So all I'm trying to say is I understand where Daisy's coming from here, in so far as like it can be really hard when you're newly transitioned and the beauty standards feel so far out of your reach, you know? Mac Paladin, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome, raiders. We're going over the Detrans documentary from PragerU. Beauty standards are so effed up. It feels like it's easier to purge so many other bad thoughts, but those have more powerful way of sticking to people for some reason. Yeah, well, Dylan, I think it's because it's that beauty standards are so omnipresent, you know? They're in all media that we consume. He cries all the time like a hormonal teen. I also cry all the time. I forget what I was watching the other day and I started crying. What was it? I don't remember. Oh, I pet a dog the other day and I cried. I cried so much. It was a really nice dog. And also it looked a lot like Samus and it made me really sad. And I missed my dog a lot. For some of us, like me, we never really cared, or at least pretended we didn't care about our appearance. And then boom, now we're 10,000% more aware and have a reason to care about our appearance. Yeah, exactly, Phoebe. Like, and that's the other thing, right? Like, I care about my appearance, but like learning the habits to, you know, maintain the appearance I want is still a very rough process when you have to unlearn the unhealthy relationship you had with food prior, you know? Hey, Shirazb. Sup? Hello, I've been lurking for a bit. Always love when lurkers say hi. Hi. The way I dig of advice on plastic surgeries of cis people, and guess what? Intervention was justified due to psychological reasons. True. Hey, non-binary. The more I cry, the closer I am to my period. It's true. You know, there's not a ton of research, I think, as far as I know of, on, like, transgender hormone cycling, especially for, like, trans women and, like, periods. But my feeling is definitely that, like, around the 20th of any given month, I lose my shit very easily. That's something I've noted over the last several years. Was the doggo confused by your weeping? It was the first time it met me, so probably. But also I got down on the floor and was cuddling with it. It was very nice. It was named Peaches. It had a cute little scarf on its neck. That's wonderful, Lucy. All right, anyway, moving on. Sorry.
What do we do now?
I just woke up one day, looked at myself in the mirror, and asked myself, what the heck am I doing? As I realized, no matter if I would have gone every surgery, continue with hormones, I realized I would have never been a woman at best.
I do have to say, the decision to frame all of the detransitioners in this story as deeply, deeply sad, and all of the trans people as very happy, is weird to me. Like, this is this is very strange as a decision for a documentary with this political bent behind it.
I would have been a caricature of what I believed a woman was. Nobody would help me because they had more concerns of me reversing everything. I just socially detransitioned, got the implants removed. So I had technically developed gynecomastia. My chest is not like it used to be, and it never will. I have scarring, numbness, and unfortunately, my nipples are completely different. To put it lightly, it has been taking a major toll on me since I realized what I've done.
I was almost 5 years on testosterone. So if I had gone further, I wouldn't have been able to go back.
What? What? I'm genuinely trying to parse that. Like, if you had gone further, as in, we're on hormones longer? Or we're already past that part, non-binary. Where is she talking about, like, getting, like, bottom surgery, like a uterus removed? Like, what?
When I found out I was pregnant, I was just over the moon. I mean, I was scared I was gonna have a doctor tell.
You can tell me you can go 5 years without any consequences? No? What? If you're on hormone replacement therapy for 5 years, yeah, there are going to be some pretty permanent changes to your physiology. Once you're on T, it's the only way to be? Yeah, I'm confused. But, like, you can, even if you're on T for, like, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, you can still get pregnant.
Tell me that, like, sorry, you're infertile, and it would have been my fault. There are so many young people who are going.
My understanding is that testosterone does not render trans men infertile? Maybe I'm incorrect about that, but my understanding is that testosterone doesn't render trans men infertile, but hormone replacement therapy for trans women generally does deeply affect the fertility of, like, trans women.
Going through very similar things that I did and are still being told that transition will save them, and it's just not true.
Oh, look, the one time a detransitioner has been shown smiling in this entire video. It's almost 20 minutes in.
My story is tragic in some ways, but it's very redemptive in many ways. That cannot be said for many detransitioners. And that's just heartbreaking. Like, I can't imagine living with that. Like, I can't.
Also, the one thing that really upsets me is, like, if you need to detransition, good. Do that. You know, trans people, by and large, support our detransitioning siblings, okay? Like, trans people don't want to subject other people to the dysphoria that, by and large, made a lot of us transition, right? But this person, right? And while I have an immense amount of sympathy and empathy for them, again, we've seen her social media where she straight up says she doesn't believe anybody should be able to medically transition regardless of how old they are. And, like, I don't agree that detransitioners should be able to subject trans people to the wrong bodies, you know? They're showing that she's happy now because she was able to have a baby, you know, the ultimate purpose for a woman. Well, yeah, but, like, trans men can be pregnant. That's the thing. Trans men can get pregnant. That's the source of my confusion. I think ultimately, though, what the issue is while trans men can get pregnant, she's deeply Catholic. She's deeply Catholic, and trans men can't get pregnant via, like, a Catholic man because they're you know, that would not be kosher with Catholic doctrine.
I can't imagine what it would be like to regret a bottom surgery, or, you know, to be infertile because when you were a little child, like 12, your, you know, parents were manipulated into.
Oh yeah, no. Like, PragerU's absolutely manipulating all of these people, right? PragerU is using them for propagandistic purposes because PragerU is a propaganda outlet funded by billionaires who specifically want to eliminate LGBTQ people from society. Okay?
Putting you, like, blocking your puberty.
Being so young, I was so impressionable. I was told so many times, it's possible that you're trans, it's possible that you're trans, that eventually I started to believe it.
Unfortunately, transition made things worse for me.
It has just kind of wrecked my perception of myself, and I feel like I missed out on, like, 3 years of my life. I missed out on 3 years of living my teenage girlhood.
I didn't realize that there were women like me who were different.
So, Here's the deal. I'm detransitioning. It's true, it's not a joke.
I understand now that I can be a cis woman again. I haven't gone too far. I haven't passed the point of no return. I can live as a woman again.
I was
Space, Jack,
something
and Chat are
because
still
people were
going at it,
reacting
destroying transphobia with facts and logic.
True. Thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub, Kyryu.
to me, but it was a me that wasn't really me, so I was protected. I was protecting myself with the trans label.
These pediatric clinics that perform...
What? Oh, I was saying I was trans because that wasn't really me is... Cool, yeah, okay. Yikes.
These surgeries, they will do nothing to help these teens if they decide to detransition.
Why is Ollie London in this? Why is Ollie oh, yeah, wait. I forgot that Ollie London is claiming that he was a trans woman. I forgot. I had purged that from my mind and was only remembering that Ollie London wanted to transition into being Korean. And wanted to get, like, a penis reduction surgery to be more Korean. Because he's racist. Dude wrote... Kyryu, thank you for gifting Clever Chef a sub.
Looking very lovely, Jack.
Thank you. Cleaver Chef, my bad. Yeah, Ollie London claimed to be a trans person for like 3 or 4 months and then wrote an entire book about being detrans. Dude, I mean, at a certain point, like, obviously he's a piece of shit, but I gotta respect the hustle. That's just so blatantly obvious, like, to take money from easily duped conservative audiences, you know? Just what a I mean, like, what an absolute ghoul. He's a fucking grifter doing it all for the money. It's so fucking obvious. Yeah, right, Sophie? Hey, Coffin Punk.
Nothing you can do. You know, once you've taken all those hormones, Billy, your body is changed beyond repair.
You don't have to remove your body parts to make you complete. When I transitioned, my suicidal ideation did not go away.
Transition is not...
That's because transition isn't some sort of panacea that cures you of all your mental illnesses. Okay? Like, guess what? Guess what, chat? After I transitioned, I was still depressed and had to go on antidepressants. But that's because I was living in a non-supportive environment. When I moved out of that non-supportive environment, I didn't have to be on antidepressants anymore. Because I could be happy and not want to kill myself anymore. That being said, transitioning did not actually eliminate my anxiety disorder. That still exists.
Not the only answer, and there are many detransitioners like me out there.
My name is Camille Kiefel.
My name is Emily. My name is Laura Becker.
My name is Abel Garcia, and I am a detransitioner.
My name is Daisy, and I am a woman.
There's something profoundly sad about this documentary, you know? Like, can we just, like, linger on that last shot?
And I am a woman.
Like, It's profoundly sad. But I feel like if you watch it with the proper context of like all of the information PragerU obviously purposely left out, from the studies they cite, from the people they use. Like, if you add all of that additional context in here, like, it actually becomes, like, very pro-trans. Like, it shows that, sometimes transitioning isn't right for you. And sometimes when you even attempt to exist as a trans person, like, people are going to, like, sexually assault you. Like, it's in order to try and, like, correct your aberrant behavior. And, like, there's so much in here where I feel like if you recontextualized it and added more stuff, you could actually have, like, a decent, like, trans-affirming documentary that is also affirming of, like, people who need to detransition for their own health. Like, it's in here somewhere, right? Like, it's in here. I can see it. Well, it's scary, to be honest, because how many people who are considering transitioning are going to see that and be like, well, maybe it's not for me, and they could end up in a worse place because of that. Well, true. That's true. I am hoping, though, and my goal with making this segment in the first place was to hopefully have my video come up when people are looking for this Detrans documentary from PragerU, or have this video suggested to them. Because I think I did a decent job of providing context. And when that context is provided, again, I think it makes a lot of what's in this documentary make more sense. And yeah, I know maybe I'm like stroking my ego a little bit too much here, but like I think adding my life experiences to this is also some pretty good context for what's going on with, like, Daisy, for example. Hilarious thing a while ago was Keffel's fake detransition video. It was the popular detrans video, and it was full of comments that never watched it. I mean, yeah, that's basically conservatives in a nutshell, right, Sophie? I feel like I should have more to say at the end of this, other than, like, I feel really genuinely bad for the trans folks in that were in this documentary, both like the happy ones and the repressed ones, and I hope whether they stay detrans or retransition later, which is statistically likely, I hope that they find happiness, like genuinely and truly. I want them to do whatever's like best for them, and I hope that while they're pursuing that, it's not something where they transition when they're 80 years old after their loved ones have passed, because I've seen people do that, and it's while they find joy later in life, it's really sad to see them wonder about what could have been, their entire lives. What love they could have found, what joy they could have found, what meaning they could have found that they denied themselves for all this time. There's a profound sense of loss there. And it's the loss of, knowing who they've been this entire time and not, you know, allowing themselves to exist. So, to Daisy, to the other Detrans folks, I genuinely and sincerely wish and hope that they find happiness, even if they are, you know, searching for it by going down this path that seeks to deny me, and people like me the right to medically transition. I still hope that they find happiness, because I have, you know, I have, you know, a few scraps of human compassion left in my jaded old heart.